Okay, the next item is communication, but no one has signed up this evening, I believe. So we'll move on to superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Birdie. And at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Martin to cover the items listed under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Birding, members of the board. Several items for your consideration this evening under Personnel Professional. Item number 1, resignation, letter A. And I do want to mention this resignation is one of our teachers here at the high school, a chemistry teacher who has recently passed away. And Brian Walters had worked with us this was his 5th year. And he was a much-loved teacher, loved by the students, loved by his fellow workers, an extremely intelligent gentleman who just loved to teach. And he will be long remembered here. He made a tremendous impact in those 5 years. So we're very sorry to receive the resignation as a result of his passing. Item number 2, an extracurricular resignation for the current school year, letter A. Item 3, unpaid leaves of absence, letters A and B. Item 4, employment, letter A is extracurriculars for the current school year. Item B is an academic support tutor for this year. Item C, a substitute teacher for this school year. And item D, a volunteer for this school year. That concludes the items I have for your consideration this evening under Personnel Professional.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept those recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Shorter and Mr. Begley, any questions or comments? I will just comment that the service here at the high school for Mr. Walters was very well attended by the students and staff, and some incredible stories were shared. And definitely he will be missed here at Fairfield. So he made a lasting impact
Yes, he did.
on many, many, many kids.
Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Shorter? Yes. Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes,
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
motion passes.
This time, I'd like to ask Mr. Perry to cover the items listed under Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Birding, members of the board, I have the following items for your consideration under personnel support. Number 1, resignations, A through I. Number 2, unpaid leaves of absence, A. Number 3, employment, A through E. And number 4, there was an employment correction, A. That concludes the items that I have for your consideration under personnel support this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept those recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Heard Mr. Clark and Mrs. Shorter. Any questions or comments? Okay, Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Shorter? Yes. Mr. Begley?
Yes.
Mr. Birding?
Yes, motion passes.